Hola, and welcome to Power and Perspective. I am April. No, I know. Wait, no. This is Aaron. Yes. And this is Molly and Bodhi, and we are here to reframe conversations with empathy and humor. Today we are talking about tiny house living, which is my favorite. It's really like my dream life. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and live vicariously through Molly and Bodhi today and just pretend that I'm there with them. You want to go there now? Already? That's deep. Like just jumping deep. Why do I want to live that life? Oh, it feels so free. Like it's free. Like and it's self-limiting. Like which sounds bad, but it's good, especially for someone like me.
You're right.
Like you get to decide that's how I purge right now. I'm like, is this valuable enough to be in my tiny house? Like that's how I decide if I keep an object. Is this valuable enough to keep in my tiny house? It's freeing. Wherever you go, your home is with you. So like there's no where you have to have a vacation after the vacation. You know what I mean? Because you're already home. It's all vacation.
But isn't that here or here?
Oh, I'm not that so. Aaron's trying to get like all. I was gonna say metaphysical. That's not the right word.
Well, and I'm very, very pro the idea of tiny house living, but I am not looking for what you're looking for in being mobile in that.
You want to be stationary?
Yeah. There is a stationariness for me because it's low impact, like you said. It's self-limiting, but it also gives you something that is easier to take care of, so that you can spend more time away from it, or it gives you more opportunities. And I mean, we'll get more into this, I'm sure. More outdoor time as a necessity, and fewer excuses to sit in front of computers and talk to people on the internet. Not that that's what this is.
I agree with the stationary with regards to like, because if it's stationary, then you can collect rainwater. Although you can do that mobile too, just not as efficiently or as easily. And then you can have your little garden. Okay. I get that. I can get that. I can get with that too. I'll take it really anyway. This is the second this is
Careful.
already the second night. The second time tonight I've said that I'll take it any way I can get it.
Like your coffee. Moving
Like
on. So,
inside.
so Molly and Bodhi, just I guess to get started, what inspired? And I guess this is a kind of a bigger question. Like, what was the? Did you have a larger life before? What inspired the downsizing or the tiny house living, or if mobile is part of your plan, or any of that?
Do we want to know? Do we want to know where they're living now first? Or is that after the inspired part?
We can get right
Is
into
this like
that afterwards. Yeah.
Is this a timeline interview?
No.
Okay, timeline.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're
Timeline.
I have to have the structure in my head to know what I'm doing. Okay. Sorry.
Well, I think that it started with minimalism. We watched The Minimalist. Have you guys heard of The Minimalist?
Yes, I get his email.
We watched that documentary like in 2017, and like so we just decided to like we had this 2-bedroom apartment. We're gonna start getting rid of everything, and then like within a month we saw the Tiny House Nation show, and then we're like, oh, okay, now it makes sense why we needed to go to minimalist, and so it just like we didn't make any decisions.
Yeah.
It just happened for us.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't something that we were planning on doing or seeking out. Like we thought we had pretty much arrived at the apex of our life. You know, the kids were gone and we're going to be living the rest of our lives. And then all of a sudden, oh, we should get rid of stuff. Oh, we should move into a tiny house. Oh, we should live off grid. And it just kept snowballing to living in a school bus.
Oh, that is so exciting.
So is home, just out of curiosity for me, is like homesteading a part of your guys' plan, like your life?
Yeah,
now?
that's where we're heading.
Okay.
I mean, that was sort of the original goal was to move out of the apartment, find a piece of land, take our tiny house there, homestead, set it up, and go from there. But when we built the tiny house originally, we didn't even have a place for it to park. We didn't go that far. We don't tend to plan things. We just have like outlines, and then we kind of stumble and figure it out as we go along. But it kept going without having a place to live with that house in New York. We were kind of like, we didn't feel comfortable. Like at any moment we felt the city was going to come knock on our door and tell us we got to leave. And so we just weren't comfortable. And that's what led us to go into the bus and all that. But the idea was to really just find some land and be stationary, set up the homestead. And now 4 or 5 years later, that's kind of where we're at.
Where we're at.
Oh, okay.
Now we're
Go ahead.
Do I
Yeah, go
ask
ahead. No,
now?
you can, yeah.
I don't know what to ask because I have so many questions.
Well, we
and
can
I
go
don't know
to
what
we can go to here.
I don't know what
I'll bring
order.
up pictures of everything while you're going there.
Oh, like okay. So right now,
It's very small, yeah.
Experience when we went to build the tiny house on the trailer. And that's the one that we lived in New York when we were living in New York. And we moved in the suburbs, like off grid in the suburbs. And we were in the newspaper, like they were talking about how it was like, you know, not great. It was like against, like, what do they say that we were like hiding? Oh, under the radar.
Under the radar,
Yeah.
that we were, you know, we didn't know this going into the article, but the article turned out to be about how tiny house owners are skirting the tax issues and are, you know, and it's like, no,
Codes
codes and regulations. Like, no, we're not, that's not anything about why we're doing what we're doing, but that's kind of the spin that article took. And so that really kept us from,
that
like,
crushed us, really.
Yeah, we didn't really want to tell people what we were doing or trying to do because I guess it was so different. Especially,
We didn't want to keep bringing the red flag on us when we didn't know what we were doing.
We were just figuring it out, yeah.
did they interview you then?
Yeah,
They
they came to the house.
They came in the house, took some pictures pictures and things like that. I mean, I wouldn't say that it was like nasty, and it wasn't
was
like,
not unfavorable, but it was shocking to our perspective because we thought we were doing a fun, great, wonderful thing for our lives. And then we move in, and then it was like,
is this wrong?
Like, pointing at us,
it was definitely weird.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. Is that where we're gonna go now? Because let me tell you that in Nevada you can't park a tiny house anywhere. Like even on your own land. If I buy my own land, there are literal laws about the size of house. There's a minimum size of house that you can build on your own land. How ridiculous is that? And that's so people don't put a match. But what do you care what size your neighbor's house is? I just can't.
Well, it's so just to create some context that when you're building a city, right? If you have landowners, and those landowners are trying to take advantage of people and lower income people, one way that they can do that is by decreasing the size of housing.
But they can do that with like apartment.
Oh, and they do,
setup.
Yeah, and that's why there's minimum sizes for those as well, which also don't fit into because those have minimum sizes.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
I wonder what it is, because there's some pretty small lofts downtown.
Yeah, and there's a good chance that the tiny house movement is changing zoning regulations and everybody's kind of perspective on it.
So
new that no one understood what to do with these new dimensions and the features, but I think now over 10 years or so it's been
I think geographically, like different states are going to be different, like we were in New York, like, not far from New York City, so like it was a very populated area. There wasn't a lot of rural space to even put one. You would really be kind of in a neighborhood. We were fortunate enough to find like a business that had 30 acres and they weren't using a lot of it, so we kind of got to live in the woods in the middle of the suburbs.
In New York, just hiding in the back though.
Oh,
it was like a speakeasy. You drove through this
you had no idea that there was a house there.
And then there was our house in the back.
Oh, that is so cool. I also found out in my research of tiny house living for my own purposes that it's like illegal not to have an address.
Oh, that's a whole nother issue that, like, with getting mail, it was like impossible for us. Like, we go to the post office and explain, hey, we don't have an address. We're living off this property. We have a house, and we were like a mile from the post office. Like, we can't deliver the mail there. I'm like, well, then what are we gonna do? Like,
they won't let you get a PO box unless you have a permanent house address.
And we didn't.
So we were living in a rural space that didn't have a postal address. Like the business didn't have a postal address, so we couldn't get a PO box because we didn't have. And so like a driver's license, we couldn't get. We had to really skirt around everything because we couldn't get a driver's license or a PO box because we didn't have a address.
So in my head, I was just going to use my mom's address. In my head, that's what I was going to do.
Ultimately, I was doing, which is silly though, because I mean,
when going back,
what do these retired people do? These retired people who just live life in their big buses and drive around all the time. What do they do?
I think South Dakota. There's certain states that are favored to you getting a residency there.
Yeah.
For this sort of issue.
I know that's a van life and the bus life. I think it's North Dakota or South Dakota, where if you stay one night, like on a campground or whatever, you can gain residency in the state, and then you can use the mailing address.
Interesting.
And driver's license and everything.
They're desperate, huh?
They're genius.
Well, and
everyone come here.
And going back to like the harassment that you guys feared in New York, I mean, it kind of exacerbates itself through all of those processes where it seems like they're trying to blame you guys or the community for taking advantage when they stack everything on top of you with every disadvantage just to start. So it's all kind of a cascading pile of crap. But it's all, and I think it's unfair to not classify that as coming from a place of good intentions at one point in the past. But it's the law of unintended consequences, and as we all know, it's exemplified in government.
And you got to change with the times. There's just 50 years ago, no one would have ever thought about living in a tiny house. Like, or people
they
were
were.
living in tiny houses.
Yeah.
It was just all relative back then to the size
It
of
was
houses
normal
now.
then.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, but they're changing very slowly. I know this is my snarky side, but it's really slow. Come on. Like, tiny houses are a thing. They have been a thing. Like, get it together. Get it together. Trailers are a very valid home.
Yeah.
Like, that is a valid place to live. And it doesn't take up as many resources. You would think you would want to encourage people to live this way.
One of the things that we had come across is that, but the infrastructure of roads and schools, if you have a lot of people living in tiny houses, then the density of the amount of people don't match the roadways and the schools. So they're saying that there's all of these factors that have to go into it. But if you have your own land, why can't you do what you want on your own land?
Yeah.
Right?
Here we don't have any codes, no restrictions.
Like,
we can have a
no building
whatever.
codes. Yeah. Like, not even a building code.
Yeah.
So where are you now?
In Missouri.
So yes, we are in
like central Missouri.
And did you go there straight from New York?
Yep.
And
we came out here last June. End of June.
Did you have the bus anywhere else but there?
Yes, we I guess it's 2 summers ago now. Yeah. We just we toured around all the New England states, and we ended up. Our idea was, like we said, we don't plan things too well, but like we outline, and the outline was we wanted to have lobster in Maine. So we got there, we had our lobster, and we made our way back down. We took about 2 months, the whole 2 months of the summer, because back then I was teaching. I was a teacher for about 15 years, and so we took that summer to just travel, see things. And sort of the idea was that was like trip 1 of several we were planning. We were going to do a West Coast trip also with the bus. And the idea was we were going to tour the states and see where we wanted to move. What who had friendly regulations that we could live in a bus or a tiny house and it wouldn't be a problem. And we didn't get too far, actually. We just really, after that little trip, we had some friends that lived out in Missouri, and they were telling us, come out and visit. And we figured we would stay there for a little bit and then tour the West. But we just came out here and stayed.
Oh, that is so awesome. And selfishly, how did I not know you were a teacher? What did you teach?
I was a phys ed teacher, and I had masters in special education.
You're very sought after.
I started off my career teaching phys ed to children with special needs, and just a school for children with special needs, and so I went from there.
Oh.
I coached soccer and all kinds of other sports.
Oh, wow. Sorry, squirrel.
So,
this whole thing, that was why we did this, was so that he could retire early. So the whole plan was that he would retire by the time he's 40. He's 37, right?
38.
38? Okay. So we beat that goal of being able to retire and leave the school district, that kind of job, and live like this. That's why we did the tiny house thing. But the tiny house was really just too big for us to be able to move it around, and get to the location of where we wanted. So we kind of did it first, and we should have got the land first, but then we wouldn't have had a place to live in if we bought the land first. So you see how
it all worked out the way it was supposed to.
So the bus worked out. We sold the tiny house, and then we built the bus, lived in a campground while we bought the land, and then we came here last summer with the bus.
Wow.
And now we're building we bought a shipping container. So we have a shipping container on the property that we're going to build that out and move into that, and then sell the bus.
Wow, that's really cool.
Are you gonna are you doing the work yourself on the shipping container as well?
Yeah, we've done. Yeah, I mean, at this point, why not?
Like Molly has construction skills. She's grown up building. I know nothing. Before we built a tiny house, I never picked up a hammer, and I still am reluctant to. But I'll try. I'll do whatever Molly shows me and tells me. But she's the construction skill. I just just show me what to do.
He's the strength.
That is so awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous.
So
my mind is blown now.
That's the point. Like, we didn't know what we're doing. We still don't, but we're doing it.
Yeah, the YouTube videos. I say I can do anything. I'm basically a plumber.
Yeah.
Nice. We're gonna need some help. We can hire you out here. That's the one thing we're not so good. Well, 2 things: that and electricity. But
My skills are isolated around clogged disposals, but I'm sure I could expand.
Okay, all right. Start there.
We'll have you on speed dial.
Aaron, I can't even think of any questions because I'm so like, I feel like I'm starstruck for a way of life.
All right. So how far out are you guys from I guess normal resources like stores and a city and all that?
That's a good question.
We have a Walmart 20 minutes from us, which is like, that's kind of, I guess, a common theme out in rural areas. Walmart is your country store. That's where you go to get everything. But if we want to go to like, excuse me, like Home Depot or Lowe's, we have to go an hour to go to like Target.
So like any
like
chain
that.
type of store, yeah, or
And then we're about 2.5 hours from St. Louis
yeah.
and Kansas City. So like
We're, like,
to
in
get
the
to an
middle.
airport like that kind of scale for a few hours. And that was always the goal, is that we wanted to be like 2 or 3 hours away from major cities.
So no Uber Eats.
No Uber, no, not even
We can't even get pizza delivered up here. Like,
there's not even a sushi
yeah, there's
restaurant
nothing
anywhere
will
near us.
deliver.
Going from New York to this was a shock.
I was like, what? What do you do when you're hungry? Like,
Stock up.
I don't cook.
Is growing food and all that all part of the plan, or is that?
That's all.
Yes,
Plan,
yes, that's part of the next few years.
So after we get the house infrastructure, then we'll start, expanding our knowledge into gardening, which we have no idea how to do.
We have a bunch of seeds though, which is good. So we got that going. Yeah.
And you live in Missouri, right? Like
Things
just grow.
Yeah, it's a great
climate.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely a desert bias we have, where you can't grow anything. Things
Gardening
don't
out
grow.
here is so hard.
Yeah.
We were actually going to go to Nevada. Like, that's where we thought we were going to afford to buy land.
Yeah, yeah, out in the desert, and that would have been
Hot.
terrible for us. Yeah, But,
hot and dirty. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Dusty,
Ugh.
not dirty.
Yeah,
That's
with nothing,
Right.
like to not have anything around you and surrounding you, that would have been pretty traumatic, I think.
yeah.
It can be, yeah.
Wait. Are you guys off grid right now?
Actually, we're not. When we bought the property, we thought we were going to be off grid. Like, we had solar already. But we moved here and there was a power pole, and somebody had already connected power to it.
Oh, wow.
We were like, we rolled the dice and we won.
So we had no idea. Like we bought the property sight unseen. We bought it from New York and we hadn't seen it. And we got on with the realtor and they showed us, a video and everything like that. But we felt like, this was the place and we just bought it. And then we figured out all this stuff when we got here. Like, oh, we got power. Cool. Like, we didn't know.
That's like an adventure. Like just like your life is an adventure.
That's it.
And it's like vacation.
It is. Every day is
it's
vacation.
hard work sometimes, don't get me wrong. But when we're not doing that stuff, we're sitting here and we're like, what? We get to art all day?
Yeah.
Like, what? We get a garden and then we can take a nap? There's no boss telling us, your break is over?
Yeah. So what are the sucky parts?
The sucky parts. The ticks, the chiggers. But maybe that's not tiny house living. The sucky part of tiny house living is winter time. If you're in 2 people and you don't have another room to go into and it's winter out, then you start to get that like cabin fever, like that guy in that movie, Jack Nicholson, The Shining.
Not like that.
Maybe not that bad. Like, winter gets to be a little closed in inside of a tiny house.
Yeah.
But I think that if we had, auxiliary structures, it would be a little bit better for us.
That makes sense. That was my biggest concern if I was going to live tiny with my youngest once my oldest went to college. Like, we're rarely in the same room because it's just like she's just really loud and if I make a noise it irritates. We both have misophonia, like super super bad, and so we would probably drive each other insane.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm very sensitive about sound. So any like bump or move that he does, like I can feel the bus moving and the sounds and stuff like that. So when he was working, it was easy. He would be at work all day and I'd be home all day. So having that one space wasn't a problem. But once we got here, you know, it was summer and we could be outside and it wasn't an issue. But when winter comes, then it's like, you can't
go anywhere.
Each other, you know, and we're pretty happy, you know, good people that we get along with each other. But shit, when you're in that of this space, you know, the person's gonna get on your nerves. You got to step away sometimes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Sometimes.
Are there any other negatives?
I don't think so. I think just the fact that like we're only in one room. If we had a second room, it would be a lot easier. Yeah. But as far as like our clothes, like we have very minimal clothes, that works. Like everything is very manual. Like we have to carry our water out. We carry water in. Like everything is very like Buddhist. It's very much like a practice and a discipline than it being any. There's no problem with it.
Yeah.
Like life is about living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's so cool. What
problems with the bus though? Like the bus is a challenge in that you coming in and out of the bus.
Because we have the regular, you know, we didn't change the bus door, so we got that like split door that opens. So it's not, you know, if you have stuff in your hands, it's tough to carry things in. But
do you worry
about? Then you're going to like a bus to get into your house, like that kind of thing.
With that, do you guys worry about security at all? Like, what do you guys do about?
No, like. I thought that I would be very nervous about living in a bus. Like I thought that a bus would feel unsafe, like before moving into it. And, you know, probably the first few weeks it was kind of eerie, but we lived in a campground at the time. So it was like, oh, a bunch of RV people. It felt normal. But like the door feels secure. Like I don't feel like if someone wants in here, there's a million windows they could break to get in here. Like the door isn't an issue whatsoever. And security, like you hear everything. If anybody was coming up, you would hear them. Like if someone walked in the door, I would feel the moment they would step on the first floor of the steps. So like, there's no one sneaking up on you, and I don't feel unsafe. Like,
yeah. And we've slept in parking lots with the bus while we were like, you know, driving, and yeah, that's a little awkward, but really it feels pretty secure. It doesn't feel like anyone's going to come in here.
No one's ever bothered us in the bus.
No.
I slept on the side of the road in my car before when I took that trip up to Antici's. Yeah. It was by the beach, and it looked like other people were doing it too. I'm pretty sure it was illegal. I don't know. Oh. There was a porta potty nearby that I didn't use because it was so gross.
The number of times I've slept in a van is uncountable, but slightly different. That was with 6 dudes in an Astra van with a bunch of gear. So,
okay, that's weird.
Yeah. Moral of the story: don't be in a ska band. Don't ever do it.
Nice.
Don't ever do it. So,
do you have a question?
So, well, I lost my train of thought now.
Sorry. You want me to ask my poop question?
Yeah.
Do you have a compost toilet?
Yes.
Okay.
So the toilet is a great conversation because I think that we don't have friends anymore because we don't have a regular toilet.
That's part of it.
As soon as we moved into the tiny house, no one ever came to our house again.
Silence.
Like, what? Family.
Yeah. People have an issue with the toilet. Yeah.
His parents would not even come over.
And they flat out told me that's why, because I won't go to the bathroom. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I don't know what the big deal is about.
How often do you have to go to the bathroom at somebody else's house? Like, I don't get it. But people are freaked out by it.
That's weird. Okay, so there's different kinds of compost toilets, right? So, what kind is yours?
I think that the very, very best one is the simplest one. A bucket with a seat on it.
So
you have the fancy ones that are like almost $1,000, and
it's really no different than a bucket with a seat.
Yeah.
It really isn't. Like, and it's
So we have a place to take it now. So
what do you potty into?
Into the bucket.
In a 5-gallon bucket.
Oh, and you just
being on top of it.
With what?
Look at her face. She's like, okay. Yeah. Pee into a bucket. And then we cover it like pine. So
Okay.
you don't
smell
see
any
it or anything like
yeah.
that.
And then we have a compost pile, a couple piles out back that we put it in.
And you can compost human poop?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You may
Oh.
not want to.
I don't know that we're going to eat anything.
Oh, you don't garden with it.
We also have our cat stuff in there too, but like, it will compost.
Yeah.
It'll decompose and stuff.
Yeah, we'll grow flowers and stuff.
We won't grow our food with it though.
That makes sense. When I was on the side of the road because I refused to use the porta potty, I had a car potty. All I did was take a trash can from the dollar store, like one of those small ones, and put it in between the seats. Luckily, I'm very tiny myself. And I put bags in it, like I layered grocery bags with a little bit of cat litter in the bottom.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been there.
That's like prepper style.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I just potty and tied it up. I was like, dude, I'm a genius.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I got the whole idea on YouTube, but the layered bag thing was my idea. Because then you could just...
Because you don't want any holes in there.
Yeah, the grocery bags are so thin now that you don't...
Well, but you can... It's like... So each bag had its own kitty litter. So after every potty, I could take it out, tie it up.
That is pretty genius there.
Thank you. Thank you.
You don't have to worry about it when you have to go. You just go, and then you're ready.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
So when you talk about not having friends because of your toilet situation, like one of my theoretical like big upsides for tiny house living is the opportunity it creates for like community spaces and for getting more in touch locally with stuff. Do you guys have friends in the community? Do you have any plans of building any kind of community around what you guys are doing?
Yeah, actually that's exactly what we're like. We have 5 acres, so we want to be able to make like little RV spaces that people could come and camp or, bring their RV, and maybe we can do like little tiny 20-foot shipping container places and kind of make it a retreat center where people could come and hang out with us and see what it's like to live very basically, like very simply with, we're going down and carrying water up from the creek, not drinking water, but, bathing water, like trying to really just figure out what was it that people were doing a long time ago? What is it that we really need? Like, how can we mix our health and our exercise and the needs that we have? And so like being able to share that space with community, that's what we're doing with our YouTube and hopefully with the physical space here.
I know it was almost like that was set up. Like that wasn't planned, people, but they literally have a thing going on, and Aaron didn't even know about it. Yeah,
it's kind of gone into this like spiritual realm from like we, the minimalism thing and the tiny house has like now put us very much in touch with just like the essentials of life, and it seems more spiritual. So we have this idea that our woods are sacred. Like everything we're doing here is trying to be very intentional and thoughtful. And so we're calling it Sacred Woods. That is a new way that maybe people could see that you don't have to live in the labyrinth. This might not be for everybody, but you could come and check it out.
Yeah. It's a simpler way of life. And that's what we're trying to create for ourselves. And I guess in doing so, promote that for other people.
That's amazing.
Oh, I love it. And it's Sacred Woods, but the S is a 5, right?
Yeah. As
it's 5 acres.
It's right there. Well.
Oh, did you put it? Oh, look at you, Aaron.
Right there.
Right there.
All right.
Oh, can you see yourself? I was like, how do you know where you're pointing?
Yeah,
at?
I see the whole thing. I'm cheating.
Oh.
I do that.
So we have a bunch of YouTube videos on there of like the journey from building the tiny house, living off grid in the tiny house, building the bus, moving here and trying to set up everything here. Like we never planned on doing any of it like specifically. It's just how it's happened.
It's happened. Which is the best. That's what makes everything like even cooler. Like I hope a tiny house falls in my lap, but I guess I need to not plan it. I need to just be like zen.
You gotta do a quantum memoir. It'll happen.
You gotta envision it first and then put it down on paper and it'll come together.
Yes. So exciting. Go ahead, Aaron.
Just out of curiosity, like when you guys were talking about like not being skilled with like electricity, for instance, when you come up against problems like that, without all of the infinite resources, I imagine you guys are limited on internet access and stuff. How do you approach those sorts of problems? Do you reach out to people? Do you buy books, or how do you go about it?
YouTube has been a huge asset for me. Like I will YouTube everything. I'm kind of a hands-on person, so I will figure out how to do it. But the electric thing has always been our biggest problem, you know, until we moved here. When we lived off grid in New York, we had to use a generator. And that really sucked because we didn't want to use gas. And it was expensive and it was
loud.
noisy,
Yeah.
you know, it was messy. But that was how we got around that. And we did that for a year and a half. We lived in New York, off grid, off of a generator.
Yeah.
Wow.
So basically we find, you know, like, okay, we have to use a gas generator. Okay, we need to use a propane. Okay, we need to get solar. And so we just keep trying all of these things. And it could be kind of expensive that way, but we've learned a lot through all of those mistakes.
Trials,
trials.
Trial and error. I mean, I guess really early on, I would probably throw tantrums when things weren't like, why do we not have electricity? Why isn't it working? Because I just grew up like, you flick the switch and everything's there. Having to do things myself, I had no understanding of it. So, like, if the generator's not working, well, I don't know what to do about it. Like, what do we, you know? And so I would throw a tantrum until all of a sudden, like, well, I can keep doing this. It's not going to solve the problem. So we just learned to really just focus on solution. Like, how are we going to get the heat back on? How are we going to get the power? Like,
just a learning curve.
First year in the tiny house, like it was right starting to winter. That's when literally we did, all of our friends and family vanished from our lives. So we were put in the situation because we made this choice to live this way that we had to just figure it out. Yeah. And there was only 2 people to help us figure it out. and so that made us stronger and closer together because we had to talk it out and figure it out and look it up. There was nobody that was going to come save us or fix it for us. Yeah.
When you said like your friends and family were like gone, like just because you chose this, like I felt like all sad. But then you said that you only had each other and you had to work it out. So maybe that was meant to be. That's like
the best thing. I mean, it kind of,
in hindsight,
it's shattering. It was definitely a paradigm shift to see who was really in your life, because it was really these choices that, like, my family and friends were like, well, some of my friends just didn't understand it, didn't care, and didn't want to be involved. But like my family thought it was like throwing my life away. Like, what are you doing? Like, until they saw things later on. I'm like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing now. But for that time period, like, we felt like we couldn't rely on anyone now because these people all left. So we couldn't ask for help. I couldn't ask family for help, even though they were literally a couple miles away.
So it kind of felt like we might have chose to be like drug addicts and living on the street. Like derelicts.
Oh, what's wrong with us? But that wasn't the case at all. We were just trying something new, and
that says a lot about society, though. Like, and you said that's it. I mean, it's mind blowing. Like the perspective that people can have about something that to me is like so exciting and so like.
That's what we thought at first.
Yeah, like, so why not? Like it's like, to me, like a why not kind of thing. Like, like you said, you weren't doing drugs. You said on the before the show that you also had you've had some haters come up. What has that been anything like on your social media or anything?
Nothing, not on social media. But like, I guess really the haters referred to are the old friends and family, sort of just like, because we would almost prefer it if those people or any people would actually troll us and say those things. It's like, it was the unsaid things that people that were supposed to be our close friends and family tell us, we think you're crazy for pooping in a bucket. Just say it, like, say it. But instead of like saying it to us, we know they were saying it, they just left us and said it behind our back. And we're like, well, then really were we ever friends, or were we really ever family? So like I said, that's not any regret. That just really showed us
realization,
what we really wanted out of life and how we were there for each other. Like, it really, it was the key to where we are now.
Yeah.
Wow. Mind blown.
It's funny when you have positions that are seen as antisocial potentially, and how the kind of reactions that those things get without any kind of sensitivity or empathy approach from outside of it.
Humanity of it, like, we're people, us, and we didn't change as people, but
and no attempt to have
in a way, but.
to have a conversation. Like that's what the Power and Perspective podcast is all about, is like different perspectives of things, and like, and those kind of people probably aren't watching us, but if they did, they would see that like that's when you disagree with someone, especially so vehemently, that you're willing to basically walk out of their lives.
Right.
Like it's not even worth a conversation.
We're willing to talk about anything. Like, you know, we're open to anything. And so we were surprised that no one was willing to play our game with us.
Yeah,
no one wanted to, you know, see what are you guys going crazy? What's going on? Nobody even asked us questions.
That is
not for people we didn't know. It was the people,
the
we
people
didn't
that we
know.
didn't know.
And that we met through the process. Like, actually, like, on social media, we probably made more friends than, you know, definitely more friends than haters out of it.
Yeah.
You know?
That makes sense.
It probably speaks
I
to the
would have been at your house.
It probably speaks to the dangers of having expectations, of established expectations of the people around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. We thought that some of these people were.
Well, we didn't fit in their box anymore.
Yeah, we didn't. We left their world, but we didn't understand that was going to mean that we were going to be sort of excommunicated. Like we thought we could be our weird selves, and because we always were, and nothing would change. But like that was sort of like some sort of line, like boundary that we crossed. Apparently.
So crazy.
Well, and
ahead,
so
Eric.
to continue on like down this detractors road here, whenever we do these, I always try to, because obviously April and I are incredibly biased towards y'all's way of life, and so I try to breach that a little bit in my research. And the craziest thing I found, and this is probably going to be a little out there, but we'll kind of roll with it. There are a couple articles I read about the idea that tiny house living is basically poverty appropriation, and that ultimately that anybody with a choice should not be engaging in this kind of behavior because there are people who don't have a choice. And I just kind of wanted to get your guys' reactions because it was confusing as I read through it, and I didn't know how to approach it.
So they're saying that people that can afford to build tiny houses shouldn't build tiny houses because there's people that can't afford. Is that what you're saying?
No, like normal people who can afford and have jobs and don't have all of the major struggles in life, who maybe aren't on drugs and have all of these resources available to them, are appropriating poverty culture by downsizing their lives and living in these kind of squatter adjacent
propaganda fear, like, oh no, don't live a simpler way of life with a less carbon, don't do that,
I was gonna say, who wrote that?
Should be doing, especially if they have the resources to do it.
The CEO of Amazon wrote that.
Yeah, right. But,
sounds like spend money. Work more to spend more money.
It keeps you in the labyrinth of having to, work and keep doing that to pay your bills and to get your things, instead of just easily, like, you can work and still have a tiny house. Like, you don't have to sacrifice.
Here, I think, like, okay, so yes, financially, on paper, we probably look like we're in poverty, right? We don't have the $100,000 jobs and the big cars and stuff like that. So, like, in a sense, we probably fit that kind of concept. I think that's how some people might look at us.
Right, but
that we live in a school bus in the middle of the woods, hermits, don't have jobs, just sit around and
living a life. That's what we do.
I was gonna say,
and I think that's. I think
living my dream life.
It's immediately probably where people go just because of that breach of expectations. But at the same time, there's a channel I watch on YouTube called Gone with the Winds, where they basically went through a very similar journey that you guys have had, except it ended them up on a sailboat. So they sail the world and they do video production for work, but it looks much more glamorous because they're going to foreign countries and seeing everything that they always wanted to see because that's their journey. But it's the same kind of, it's basically the same life.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily about appearances that you have to get further into it, is I guess the only point I was trying to make for the sake of argument there.
I know that one thing that I always think about is that, okay, we live in a school bus now. When we were thinking about building a tiny house, there was no way with the consciousness that I had at that time that I would have moved into a bus. I felt like I needed to have a house.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't want to live in a trailer, you know, like nobody, you know, like that's the idea. Nobody wants to live in no person in the right, you know, that was the kind of mentality that I had grown up with and then lived with. So I was like, oh, I have to live in a house. I can't live in a bus. My ego wouldn't let me choose to go live in a bus. It made me go build a tiny house that was too big and, you know, cumbersome and not what I needed, because my ego wouldn't let me just move in a bus. But eventually I got humbled and was like, oh, actually, this is the smartest, wisest, most practical thing that we could have done. I don't want to say I wish we would have done the bus first, but in hindsight, if I did it again, I would have just went straight to the school bus, got rid of everything, got all of my shit in a row, got to the property and done it this way.
Yeah, we kind of weren't ready at that point, because we did have a lot of stuff. In our 2-bedroom apartment, we made one bedroom literally a closet, because that's how much stuff we had. So we couldn't even consider the bus at that time, because it was like, that's what we thought that was like way too small. Like we wouldn't have enough room.
Or not even small, but like below our, like, okay, we're middle class people. You know, those are artsy people. Like he still had his teaching thing. Like our minds were in a world that was not what our minds are now. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like my ego wouldn't have let me live in a bus. Like I would have judged myself too harshly at that time. Do you see what I'm saying?
Totally. And this is like, that's what it's
nonsense.
That's what it's all about. Like, that's what these conversations are about, to try to open up people so they don't like have to have the experience, but they can see the perspective, you know, from a different way of life. I always wish when we do these things that we had a like super contrarian, like someone who is like, must have big house. Like,
yeah.
Because I always want to know, like, why? Like, I can't even, that kind of lifestyle is a lifestyle I can't fathom. Like,
that's the same way here.
The bigger your house, the more you have to clean. Like, so you,
more stuff and
more utilities and resources. Yeah.
And the more energy it takes. To me, everything that I own takes some of my energy in some way, even if it's just sitting there. It takes some of my energy, and so the more I own, the more energy is like is outputted. So like how do they do that? That's why they live like zombies. I'm being very judgmental right now.
Yeah,
I will
you should not do that.
So what I've learned from living in as a bus is that I don't judge anybody for like living in anywhere. And like when we were in the tiny house that first winter and we couldn't get the generator to run some nights and it was freezing and we had no heat, it was like, all I could think is that there's homeless people that don't have, at least I have walls and a roof and a door, like,
and blankets.
From the time that we moved into that tiny house, that immediately humbled me so much. Yeah.
For everything that you have. Yeah.
To be grateful to be alive and to have something.
Yeah. When I was taking my little car road trip, in my mind, it would be so easy. I'll just park wherever, sleep in my car. Like, that seems easy. It is not easy. No. You can't, where do you park? You don't want to park in a neighborhood. You don't want to get caught. You know what I mean? You don't want to, like, I remember as a kid, I hope mom's not watching this one, but as a kid, when I was young, I said I was staying a night at a friend's house. She said she was staying in my house. We were so lame, we had nowhere to go. So we drove up to a casino that's up on Mount Charleston-ish. Like, no, on the way there. Anyway, but we slept in the parking lot of the casino. And in the morning, a security guard came as like knocking on the window, like, you can't sleep here. Like, and that's still in my head. Like, I don't want that. I don't like being in trouble.
I don't either.
But it's hard to find. Imagine people like that's their life where they just have to go find places. And then again, like you said, I had a car. What if I didn't have a car? Like the people who walk around the park and have to sleep at the park, and like, of course, that's illegal. And
Yeah, just the other month in LA, they had a big police event chasing homeless people out of a park to do renovations. But they ended up over the course of a full week just chasing all of these people out of the park with a show of force, like an incredible show of force. So
here they built tiny houses for the homeless. There's an organization, whose name I can't remember. Oh shoot. Anyway, but they put money together and they built these little hut things on some land that I think is common, maybe state, city land or whatever, and had, worked around some things. Like, it wasn't totally legit, but the cops came, said, you have like 5 minutes to get your stuff out, and they came with bulldozers.
Oh my goodness.
And knocked it all down.
That doesn't seem right.
Right? Like, you couldn't have worked with them, like, and the people who created them, the organization that created them, even said, just tell us, let us move them. Those cost a lot of money. Let us move them to somewhere else. But they didn't. They destroyed them all. And if they didn't get their stuff out, destroyed it too.
For safety.
I don't know how we got here.
Hand. Well,
yeah.
If you want me to be cynical now, I can do that.
Yeah. And Steven said he doubts they were pooping in buckets. They probably were not.
Well, I think we can get to some questions because there was a lot here. Katrina was curious. What do you do for fun? Do you hang out at home a lot?
Oh, yes. That we don't want to go anywhere, really. We go out like once or twice a week to get groceries. But most of the time we're always here doing our art. Like, we're trying to build our craft and our art so that we do have, a livelihood going forward. But we're always just here. Like, every day is fun. Like, there is no work, play. Like, it's all one thing.
Yeah, it's just our lifestyle.
Just life.
Yeah. I like to fix up things, like we're, spring here. So now we're fixing up the land and things like that, to eventually set up for the gardens and things like that. So we love spending our time here. I mean, we're homebodies anyways. Yeah. Like, we prefer, like, when we're in our apartment, we would just hang out in the apartment, have people come over, things like that.
Do you find the outdoor, like your outdoor time, it being part of work, do you enjoy that more now than, as you were saying, being homebodies, like maybe not getting out as much? Is that improved your lives?
Oh, yeah. Because when we lived in the suburbs or in cities, like, I wouldn't take the time to go to the park. But now, like, it's outside the door, so I could just take a walk anywhere and there's no people. So, like the outdoors is very inviting. We go out there and it's like a Steve Irwin, like, is that the like,
we saw
there's like snakes today. And there's deer and there's like all these things out there happening.
Do you plan to get chickens?
We had thought about it, and actually we're thinking about guineas.
Yeah.
Have you heard of guineas?
Guinea birds?
Yeah.
And the like.
Yeah.
So people have been telling us to get those because they're good for the ticks and all that, but they're like so loud and they like screech. But I don't know, one day maybe.
We don't really want to get anything that we have to try to keep alive or protect at night if something else wants to eat it.
We have our 2 cats and ourselves, and we'll try to work ourselves. But yeah, we're not ready to do that yet.
Yeah.
But we might.
Who knows?
Like, maybe when you have a resort and then, like, part of the guest's experience is keeping the chickens alive.
Yes, keep the chickens alive while you're staying here. We'll give you a bonus.
Yeah.
Are you guys vegan at all? Do you have any intent to live off of, like, the resources that you have more from a food perspective in the wild out there?
Yeah, we want to get to the point where we don't eat meat. Like, I'll eat fish occasionally, but we don't eat meat. He doesn't eat any animal. Well, you eat dairy, but yeah.
Cheese. We're like, we're not. I wouldn't label us as really anything, because sometimes if we're feeling like eating meat, like, I'll have a hamburger, but like, usually not. Mostly, just vegetarian stuff. And yeah, that's the idea. I would love, like, one of my dreams is just pick everything from the garden that morning and I'm like, well, this is what we're gonna have for dinner, or this is lunch. Like,
We green juice. So we buy a lot of greens and carrots and stuff to juice, and that's where.
So we'd like to grow that kind of stuff.
All of that stuff we would like to grow here.
Nice.
And there's lots of little produce markets, in town that we could go to. But Walmart, they have everything, and it's like the ones like if we want to go to the grocery store, that's 20 minutes. Really that's where we have to do it for right now. But in the long run,
we want to sustain ourselves here.
Growing the food here would be the way to go.
Yeah. Totally, especially if you can get away from Walmart.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we want to be fresh and healthy and know that it doesn't have chemicals on it and that it's not shipped from somewhere and sitting in, trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's literally only reasons not to shop at Walmart.
Exactly.
Going back to the protecting the chickens, Stephen was asking if there are any dangers out there like large animals or snakes or the like.
Yeah, we have copperhead snakes.
Oh.
There was some bear sightings recently.
Mountain lions, we've heard. We haven't seen any of those things yet, but we just got here. But
we did see a snake today, though.
We did see it.
That was a big
3
feet.
Yeah, that's a big snake. By our solar panels, but he was cool.
I don't even have the solar panels because it's hot.
He let us take some video. We're all good.
Out of curiosity, are you guys armed and potentially prepared for? Okay. For incidents with mountain lions and such, because that sounds terrifying.
You gotta be.
Yeah. And we live in a holler, so we could always holler down at our neighbors. Like it really is a thing. A holler. Have you heard that, guys?
No.
No, I can see the look on your face.
I don't know what it was.
It's like a country term that you like the way we're up on a ridge. I guess that kind of I need to give you that information. We're up on the top of a ridge, so like there's a holler that goes down. So you could holler at your neighbors and they could hear you like a telephone, like an echo.
Yeah, it's like
so
a valley.
if we were in distress,
someone would hear. We do have neighbors
5 to 10
kind of
acres
around,
away, they would hear us.
You just blow the horn of Gondor and.
Yes.
Smoke
they'll be on the way.
I did not understand that reference.
Yeah, you'll hear it now. It's a holler.
I think I've read that in a book before. A holler.
Yeah, I never knew it until that's what everyone says. Oh, well, we're over in the holler. What are you talking about? That's the valley, I guess, is a holler.
Interesting.
And Jacob says you guys are rock stars.
Oh, thanks, Jacob.
Right on, thanks,
for breaking social norms.
Yeah.
Fight the man.
Yeah. Power to the people.
Yes. You want me to ask Stevens?
Yeah.
What was the main selling point for the shipping container and any cool plans? No, Steven, they have lame plans.
Outlines, we don't plan, so yeah.
That's right.
Well, there's a lot of reasons, but really it kind of came to a point like, well, we build a tiny house on wheels and then we build a school bus. Why would we build a normal house when we could build a shipping container house?
Because we were thinking about doing a stick build pretty much of like the same dimensions.
A little tiny one.
Yeah, still going to be a small space, but when it comes down to it, it's like really having the shipping container, it was delivered, it took a couple hours, it's in its spot, and like now we already have the shell of our house. Yeah, it's
so
already
we don't
made.
have to
we don't have
worry
to start
about
from scratch.
Structure of building a roof.
The
like
safety stuff.
Like like the main thing is done. We got walls, floor, and a ceiling.
Yeah.
Just like that. Was it a used one?
Oh
yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool too. Like
plus, I guess wood has the cost of lumber has like increased like.
We're hearing crazy numbers. It depends who you talk to.
Know, like
people tell us
4,
triple,
10 times,
quadruple the amount. Like it, every time we talk to someone about it, it seems
goes
like
up?
it's going up.
It's skyrocketing. Yeah.
So the shipping container, like cost wise, it seems like financially ease, comfort, like it's there. Now we can start building it.
Yeah, and we can always kind of add to it and literally add with another shipping container if we wanted to, which was our original to do too. But so
yeah.
The thing about metal containers that we've learned from living in the bus is that they block the internet reception, like cell phone reception and Wi-Fi. So that could be a good thing also.
That sounds
it's called EMFs. Yeah. Is that what it is?
Yeah,
EMFs.
Oh.
So like I think like okay, apocalypse, EMFs, like yeah, my shipping container is going to protect me from all those bad things bouncing around in the atmosphere.
I watched a show about that. There are some people that are allergic to them. And so there's like a town where they're banned. Like there's no internet or cell phone, anything in the whole town because the people who are like literally allergic to those are there. I don't know what that means. Don't look at me like that. It was a show I watched.
I'm not looking at you. That look was for the universe.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
Who is actually allergic?
That was my
I wanna
skeptic
see
face.
face.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't question that. I literally didn't question that. I was just like, oh, they're allergic. Well, okay. I don't know what that means.
Ultimate faith. So, you were talking about getting rid of the bus. Are there any, and do you have any intentions? I guess plans are the wrong word, as we've come to know. To continue traveling, is that part of this journey at all? No.
Not with the bus. Anyway.
Not with this big
bus. Well, actually, we are thinking of we have one vehicle right now, and we want to get a second vehicle for traveling, like a G20 van. Like, so we want to even go smaller with, for
van life.
So if we do want to travel, we have that. Or if we do have to get away for a couple days, a week, whatever, we have a place that we could actually stay in that's not as clunky as even the bus, which is better than the tiny house was, but still even smaller.
And then the only reason we don't want to keep the bus is because the bus is this bus is an amazing bus. It's 2005. So it's from the bus depot. It's the engine has less than 200,000 miles. It is going to waste away here. If we move out of it, Mother Nature, the mice, the wasps, the spiders, everything is going to overtake this if we're not in it on a daily basis. So this vehicle will be way better for somebody to have on the road than for it to just sit here in the woods. So it makes more sense for us to let it move on and then, build other structures here that are more meant to be stationary.
That makes sense. Everybody's hollering about your art. They want to know about where you sell it and tell us about it, please, they said.
The quantum memoir?
I don't know. It says the art. Where do you sell your art?
Oh, well, I don't sell it. That's actually kind of the thing is we are trying not to sell anything. We're trying to have reciprocity with the universe where we have very specific intentions about what we're doing with our time, like our art, which is just free. It's messages, it's our YouTube videos, it's visual art about thinking and perspective and points of view. So we're just sharing that and putting it out there with the intention that the universe will reciprocate wealth for us. So, I'm sorry, there's nothing for you to buy.
You can buy a book.
You can support. Oh, you know what? He does have some children's books. Yeah, so I should say they're free online, but we do have printed versions if somebody wants a tangible one.
Yeah, we always like to give
our
work. We always like to give our work for free, but if someone wants to buy it, we give those options too.
Oh wow! Okay, so it's quantum QUANTUM
memoir.
MEE. That's funny. You think I know how to spell that? MEMO.
MEM.
I'm a M.
Oh,
OIOR. MOIR. Quantummemoir.com.
And so that's the sacred geometry art that I do that is conscious related.
Yeah, and if you guys want her to come back for that, shout out, because I'm convincing Aaron. And really, it's not Aaron's fault. I just don't know enough about it to actually convince him yet. But once I learn enough about it, that I'll be able to convince him. But
there.
Yes. Where can they find your children's books?
So I have my books on rmbodhi.com.
RM?
Correct.
BOHDI?
BODHI. Close.
.com. Oh, it's not posting on Facebook. It's only posting on
It might be
Instagram.
because it's links.
Look at that one. Look. Oh, lame sauce. Anyway, quantummemoir.com and rmbodhi.com.
Yeah.
Write it down, people, because I can't chat it.
Well, we could throw it in the description, so it'll all be there.
Oh, that too. Aaron will do the stuff.
The techie stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, here we are.
Here we are.
We're at the end. I'm not excited for the end. I'm just excited that
she's not going to sleep tonight.
She's on cue.
I'm not. And Where did you sell this? Oh, sorry, it's at the end, but I still want to know. Where did you sell your tiny house? Did you use tinyhouselistings.com?
No, we actually sold it to somebody that we met. Like,
Oh, okay.
friend that we met, he's like, I
Yeah.
have one. So it sold like within days of stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
which is so awesome because sometimes they're like super hard to sell.
Yeah. Well, we sold it at a price like that. The money is the same thing.
Yeah,
like we sold it for what we needed to sell it for,
so we
to
could get the bus, and that was it. Really, we weren't. That's kind of how we live. Like when we came out here, we just gave our car away because we were driving the bus, and we weren't going to need it. And then when we got out, we just got another car. So when things are no longer useful for us, we just try to let it go or give it to someone that it can, be useful for.
Did you hear what he said? Let it go.
Oh man.
Let it go. I'm not allowed to sing Frozen songs, but I try to sneak them in whenever possible.
I think it fit in that case.
It's always let it go.
No, there's that song, Take the Next Right Step.
A good one too.
Right?
I was like, you could sing that
Disney,
one. I don't even know what that's from.
Disney's,
it's
from Frozen 2.
You've seen it.
Oh,
It's from Frozen 2.
Oh,
that wasn't the only good song in that one, but that's another story.
That is a true statement.
They could have done.
Okay, go ahead, Aaron.
To where? Oh, so thank you guys for joining us. Like, really appreciate it. This has been fun, and April's embarrassed
I do the
for me
beginning.
now.
I do the beginning. You do the end. This is the thing.
And I don't have the calendar up, but what are we talking about next week? I was hoping to know off the top.
No, is it Ayurveda?
Oh, good. Then you have to tell somebody what that is, including myself.
Okay. So next week we're talking with someone about Ayurveda, which is it's like a holistic approach to taking care of yourself through food and other stuff. Do you guys know about it?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Different doshas and different types of food that you should be eating based on
elements.
your dosha.
Yeah. Fire.
Yeah.
And it's like you're trying to balance all these. You're trying to balance the doshas in your body.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm Veda imbalanced, as a lot of people are. So watch to see where your imbalance is and what foods you should eat. This is why I drink hot beverages and eat hot soup. The end.
I have a lot of reading to do.
Yeah. I know, because I think I know about it, and then you're like, tell me about it. I'm like,
Yeah, there's a lot into it.
Right?
Yeah.
Very cool. So that's what we're learning about next week.
So-
Ayurveda perspective.
So please like, share, subscribe. Send this video to everybody you know. Let them come hang out and ask questions so they can learn as much as I will next week, especially. Also, go to quantummemoir.com and rmbodhi.com. They will be in the description. And we'll talk to you next week. In the meantime, have meaningful conversations.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.